Can everyone see a screen with a half circle on it? Okay, wonderful. So I'd like to start by welcoming everyone to this session. Thank you for your time this morning and thank you for your interest in the BDES program. My name is Mari Fujita. I'm a faculty member at SALA and I chair the Bachelor of Design program. I'm trained as an architect and I've worked as an architect and I teach in the BDES program and I also teach in the Master of Architecture program. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that I'm presenting to you from today is the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coast Salish people of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. We as a school thank them for caring for this beautiful land for so many generations, and we commit to learning more of their teaching so that we can decolonize our practice as architects and landscape architects. So I start with images of our beautiful campus, which was traditional Musqueam territory and is still traditional Musqueam territory. Our campus has an academic core. There's kind of a residential quarter around it. There's two small towns connected to it. And we think of it as our living lab. And I'll kind of go into that a little bit more through this presentation. Here's another image of the campus, one of the kind of main trajectories. And if you can see in this back corner, can you guys see my little hand, little mouse? There's a wooden structure at the back of this LA. That is actually one of the design build projects that our students have done. So you can see how we think of this as a living lab where we had the privilege of being invited to design projects and test them with students on our campus. So the format today is that I'm going to give a program interview. I have a lot of slides, but I kind of just jump through them and just kind of communicate to you, I hope, the values of our program, some of its format, and yeah, and just kind of give you a taste of what we look like. And I have a couple slides that talk specifically to the admissions process and the supplemental application. And then we have 3 students with us today, actually 4 students, I apologize, who will speak from their experience as second and third year students. And then we'll reserve 15 minutes at the end if we have that time for a Q&A. And anything that doesn't get answered, you're welcome to, we will try to respond to in a follow-up. So if you can see, there's a Q&A box, and so you're welcome to write into that box as I speak, as questions come up, and then we'll just kind of go through them in the time that we have allotted. So the BDES is a hands-on degree. The students are engaging design. They learn the skills to be designers. They learn the kind of frameworks to think as designers. And we use our studio space, our campus, our city, our region as a living lab to think about what it means to have impact as architects, landscape architects, and urban designers. And so, we teach how design impacts society and the environment. So we have a strong interest in thinking about the environment, about energy, about ecology, and they also learn about how their work as designers can shape social and spatial change. This is an interdisciplinary education in architecture, landscape architecture, and urbanism. So the faculty that teach it come from our school. So if you're in the last session with Ron, you know that we have 24 full-time faculty that have expertise in those disciplines. So all those faculty and a series of excellent adjuncts that are practitioners from our city teach in the BDES program and bring their expertise. And as such, as an interdisciplinary school, or as disciplinary education, we're the only school in Canada that offers this kind of education in the undergraduate, as an undergraduate degree. And so we think of it kind of like a liberal arts degree, but for designers. And it allows undergraduates to, even if you're really interested in architecture, learn about landscape architecture, learn about urban design, because as a professional, our disciplines actually are constantly overlapping. So it actually is a better mirror of the real world and what it looks like to be a practitioner. It allows that student, again, the one that may be interested in architecture, to kind of think beyond the discipline and kind of gain a lot of knowledge and power through that. And it also, in many cases, gives students an awareness of these other disciplines. And sometimes students come in thinking they definitely want to become one thing, and then they leave realizing that they really, really want to become something else. So it's a kind of wonderful moment to kind of keep it open for undergraduate students as they, plan their next steps. Yeah, our grads of our previous undergraduate degree that we had for 16 years that kind of led to the development of the current BDes degree. Those grads, and we expect the grads in the BDes degree also go on to become professionals in architecture, landscape architecture, urban design. Some of them go on to become planners. Other ones go on to do different things, entrepreneurs, kind of builders, lawyers, image makers, graphic designers, like game designers. So there's like the people that go on and pursue disciplines, or ones that kind of use their background as designers to pursue other paths. Our school is it's a small program, so we accept 50 into the first year, and then in the second year we reserve space for 10 students to transfer in. So by the second year we build a cohort of 60 students per year, and this is a number that we're really comfortable with because we feel like we still can know all of our students and have a relationship with them and see them progress through the program. I think Ron had this image in his slide deck. So this is one of our professors, Bill Peckett, and walking with the students in our city, giving a tour of a kind of activated alleyway. And so you can kind of see the scale of what it means to interact with our students, so we can actually move through the city and do tours or kind of work in the studio. We are looking for a diverse student body. So we have students that have real strength in visual arts. They've spent a lot of time honing their drawing skills or thinking as sculptors or making films. And we have also other students that come and they have a real kind of technical mind, maybe have delighted in their physics course in high school, or other ones that really have a real interest in kind of social issues and delighted in their kind of social geography courses. And so as long as the student can demonstrate creative potential, we're actually interested in building this kind of diverse student body because all of those ways of thinking actually fuel great designers. And we know that from our experience. We're also looking for a diverse student body in terms of where our students come from. And so we have a varying percentage of international students every year. And we don't have a quota for international students. We really evaluate every application as it comes to us. So that's really how we think about our student body. It's really about merit and the quality of every individual application. But that said, we really embrace our international students because they come and bring other cultural perspectives and other experiences that are really, really relevant to everyone's education as designers. And you can see from these photographs, I'm just showing you images of our kind of studio space. This is students sitting, watching another student present, and you can kind of get a sense of like they're making, they're doing drawings. This is a housing studio, and you could see incredible model that was built. This is by a team of 3 students, some diagrams and beautiful perspectives behind them. This is another example of students kind of presenting their work to the student body after the end of the semester, and kind of a sense of like the kind of mix of drawings, image making, models, and the kind of really beautiful culture. And Ron mentioned peer learning is something that is also possible because of the size of our school, that the students also know each other, they don't feel anonymous, and they get a lot of value being together in our spaces. Just more images, just to kind of give you a sense of what our school looks like. This is our pinup room. These are 3 professors discussing a student's work. And it's, the faculty also have peer learning and have a really collegial relationship. So we love being together and talking to our students about their work. I'm sorry, these slides did not come out. So I'll just leave it on there. I was going to talk to you just a moment about the curriculum. So the curriculum for the BDes degree, the design is the heart of the degree. So every semester, the students are in a design course. And from their second year onwards, they're in a design studio, which is a very large space, tables, and they can go there during class time, but also outside of class time to do their work. And then this kind of stream of courses, the design stream, is supplemented or supported by coursework that would be in the stream of history theory. So they learn about the history of architecture, learn the history of landscape architecture, and they also learn about the history of urban design. They learn, along with that, theories around architecture, landscape architecture. They learn about technology, so they'll learn about kind of what materials buildings are made of, what buildings landscapes are made of, how you hold buildings up through a structures course, kind of a civil engineering course. They learn about infrastructure and urban systems. It's another technology course. They learn about sustainability, which is also kind of in our technology stream. They learn skills, so media skills, we call it. They learn to hand draft, they learn to draft on the computer, they learn to 3D model on the computer. And then from there, it gets more complicated with kind of scripting and other forms of media. We make sure that they are excellent in kind of graphic making, so Photoshop, kind of layout, Illustrator, and design. So these are all really, really vital skills. Model building, other kinds of physical output, 3D printing, laser cutting. So these are all covered in our curriculum. And finally, we have a professional practice stream in our curriculum where our students are kind of exposed to thinking about what it means to be a designer, the ethics of being a designer, but also how design can be a business. So there's a course called Entrepreneurship and Ethics in Design. And finally, there are kind of aspects to the curriculum that go beyond. Ron mentioned design build. I showed you an image of that. We have a co-op program where students are kind of trained to kind of put a CV together, a portfolio, present themselves to employers, and look for internships. And we also have exchange opportunities. So sorry about the slides. And I just want to, because we get this question quite a bit, so I'll just remind everyone that this is not a professional degree. So students that get a BDes degree have an amazing foundation in architecture, landscape architecture, and urban design, but to be a practicing professional in those disciplines, the conventional path is to go on and get a master's degree in those disciplines. And in many cases, our students get advanced placement in a master's program, which is really helpful. They learn so much in this degree that they usually covers the first year of a curriculum of most master's programs. But this degree is not usually a terminal degree if one wants to practice as a professional in those disciplines. Okay, just a couple more images. Yeah, just thinking a little bit about the skills, model making. Yeah, just we use lots of wood, lots of paper. These are what I would call presentation models. There's also a lot of work that's done, that's done in paper or cardboard. We try to think about material use and not use, not waste materials. So I encourage students in the beginning of projects to work on with boxes, things they can find that are free and can be recycled back into the stream. Yeah, they learn about, this is the Eames House in Los Angeles, and thinking a little bit about the kind of context of what it means to make a home through the last century. So this is something that would be kind of history theory, but also technology, how the house is made and constructed, and how that would relate to current standards. This is something, of course, a project that we use actually in the first year design course. Yes, this is some work from a kind of technology stream course where they're thinking about, a building structure, as a cantilever in particular, and there's a little competition to build the longest cantilever, which is very fun. Here, this is a section from a passive house building. So learning about passive house principles, which is a kind of a building type that uses very thick walls. And so it creates very, very low energy consumption because so much of they're so insulative, the walls. So really thinking about how one chooses to build relates to kind of energy use. There's a technology for that, and they learn what that means. Yeah, and another image of kind of a site visit. This is to a project under construction, so it was really fun. We all got to take the SALA hard hats and safety vests and go carefully to the site that was being built as we were touring it. This is just some projects from a course in the second year. Yeah, learning about higher tech machines. This is a KUKA robot that's in a building, two buildings away from our studio space, and at the Center for Advanced Wood Processing, and kind of learning about what it does and how it relates. And yeah, enhanced learning. This is one of the projects that are on campus that students designed and built. This is a park that students designed and built. And yeah, getting into the city. This is one of our students in the Arthur Erickson Garden. Arthur Erickson was a very prominent architect in Canada, perhaps the most prominent Canadian architect. And his house is about 10 minutes from our campus. And it has a really, really important concept for it, and also a really important garden. So we try to take students to places like this and let them draw. And yeah, studies abroad. This is a course I taught. There's Katrina in the middle from the last session with the ponytail. Yeah, just sitting in this garden, learning about its history, its technology, what it means, and having the privilege of sitting and being able to draw it and experience it. Our students have so much spirit and like curiosity and energy, and so there's a series of competitions that are available to students, and I always love the teams that assemble and participate in these competitions. I think Michi and Ghazal will talk about one of those later when the students present. But this is one for a Zero as a design magazine, and this is one where they asked students to design a booth for a trade show. And the brief was that it had to be recyclable. So these students took corrugated cardboard and created this really beautiful space, and they built it themselves and installed it. And then they got to the privilege of sitting at the booth for 2 days and learning, watching people, welcoming people to the booth, but also hearing their comments and getting feedback on their design, which is also like a really great part. So upon graduation, most of our students will go into graduate programs. Some of them go straight in, so they'll apply in their 4th year straight into master's program. Other ones will work for a year or 2, which is really, really invaluable. We have students that have graduated that are working in Europe, Asia, the exotic realms of Yellowknife, learning about subarctic design and what that means from a technological standpoint. And they'll pursue careers in practice in architecture, landscape architecture, and urban design. Other ones, as I mentioned earlier, become entrepreneurs, industrial designers. They work in the film industry, which is kind of quite prominent here in Vancouver. We've had students that have gone into the fashion industry. We have one that started a successful design build firm and designs and builds houses for a living, which is really interesting. So I've taught at UBC for over 15 years, and I've witnessed students develop their skills and passion as designers, and transform from the quite unique form of education that we offer here in our school. I really believe that design education gives students a supportive space in the community within which to explore their ideas and their passions, and really learn about how their work as designers can have impact on the environment, on the built environment, but also within social systems in the environment. We are really interested in thinking about decolonization, issues of equity, and so this comes up in many courses and also in the design work. And yes, it's truly a privilege to teach in our school where we have such amazing students and colleagues that really bring their passion, excitement, and their energy to work every day. And I think you can see it in the work that's produced, the quality from year to year. Okay, so I'm going to speak just really briefly to the application process. This information is available on our website, so you can go to the sala.ubc.ca website where you registered for this webinar and learn. There's a whole page that will speak to this, but basically, I would recommend that everyone reviews your admission requirements. So there's 2 streams you're applying to. We find the majority are applying from secondary school, and then there are admission for students that are already in post-secondary. So there's ones that are at UBC. There's if you're at UBC and you're applying into the second year, there's a certain protocol you would follow. And then if you are elsewhere as a post-secondary student, so in the Lower Mainland or anywhere in Canada or beyond, there's another protocol that you would follow. So please just kind of make sure that you understand which stream you're in. There's a kind of official part of the application that goes through the UBC channel. You create what's called a CWL account, campus-wide login, and that's kind of your identity. And through that, you kind of file your initial application, submit it by the deadline. And then the next part, and the very important part, is a supplemental application. There is a video interview and creative test, and we get lots of questions about what we're looking for in the creative test and what we're looking for in the video interview. And I'll just share with you very briefly what I tell the team of people that review all the applications, what to look for. We actually have a rubric that kind of goes through this. So for the creative test, we're looking for creative thinking. We're also looking for what we call spatial thinking. And there's 3 prompts. So there's 3 tests, I guess, in the creative test, 3 projects, sorry, and not all of them are spatial. There's ones that are, drawing based, so 2-dimensional, but the ones that are 3-dimensional, I'd really think about, what it means to work in 3D and how you can demonstrate your spatial thinking. There's some prompts that ask you to make something or even to draw something. We're looking for craft. So your interest and passion for making things, what materials you choose, how they come together, and your kind of command and knowledge of that we're looking for. We're looking for composition. So every prompt, you're asked to lay out your work on a page and create a PDF that you submit. And for that, we're looking at kind of your ideas, your your graphic sensibility about how you compose that page and put the information together. What, what's the kind of relationship of big images to small images, or how that's done. And along with that, the kind of presentation of your final product of the prompt. So how you put a title on it, if there's a little bit of text, how that gets integrated in. So that's what I would, how I would summarize what we're looking for in the creative test. And we also have the video interview. I would just really recommend that everyone practice their response and try to keep it succinct. Many students don't practice and they run out of time, so they're cut off. And there is a cutoff. There's a time period for the video response. I think it's 90 seconds. And it's really a shame if we don't get to hear the rest of what you had to say, and you come across as looking a little bit unprofessional, unprepared if you get cut off. So please try to think about keeping it succinct and get your thoughts in, so we really get to hear what you'd have to say in the response. And we're also looking for a personal response. Yeah, we're really asking you, in the question, really asking you individually, what your response would be to the question. So we're not looking for like a Wikipedia page entry or something general. We'd hope that everyone would have a kind of unique and personal response. So I think those are, again, the summary of what we're looking for, and hopefully that helps people maybe, yeah, kind of gives you a sense of what it looks like from the other side. Okay. I have used my time. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to invite Chris Nurse to speak. Chris, as I mentioned, is a third-year student. I think I mentioned that. And he is a member, as I think most people here are a member of DESIS. We have a student society. DESIS is a design undergraduate society. And so he is coming here to speak as the vice president of DESIS, so someone who's involved in the kind of student society, but also as a kind of member of the third year class. And I've asked Chris to talk, just to introduce himself and talk a little bit about his experience so far.
Yeah, thank you, Mari. Great presentation. Yeah, I'm here on behalf of DESIS and as a third year representative of the BTES program. And I just wanted to start off by saying what DESIS is. So like Mari was saying, it's an elective government that strives to help students to orient themselves into the program and give opportunities for experience and to advance their education, as well as several resources to help the current students in the program and future students. And so I also help with bridging the gap between the students and faculty at SALA. And alongside our wonderful president, Zach, who unfortunately isn't here today, we work within the committee and leaders to help coordinate outreach events and some internal events. We had this networking opportunity, which brought recent SALA graduates who went on to various design professions to come in and kind of talk about what they have done post-graduation. And that was actually coordinated by some of our third year students in the DESIS committee. And so, yeah, I'm just gonna talk about my experience in SALA. I transferred into the program actually from a Bachelor of Arts at UBC. So I started back in 2018, and I always knew that I wanted to study architecture. And I was really interested in seeing the Bachelor of Design program take a more comprehensive approach to this profession. And so in my second year, in my second semester, I decided to apply, and I took the creative test as an opportunity to really show myself and put my personal reflections of what I think design is into each of the prompts. Some quick advice and tips. I know there's a lot to cover in the creative test, but I would recommend starting early and making sure that you have enough time and really honing in on what you want to design and showcase, because you do only have 3 projects to work on. And also recommend tackling each of these 3 design challenges maybe in a different way that can tap onto different skills that maybe you want to try something new and explore, but really like take a more holistic approach. And like Mario was saying, taking attention to the design process and documenting it. Something at SALA that is integral to your education is iteration and design, and seeing how you come to fruitions of what you're designing within a remote environment, and likewise to the world. And so taking opportunities through courses like design thinking and really understanding the process and iteration of design is something that I think SALA would like to see. I'm also going to try and talk about the comprehensive education that we have from first year to third year, and to fourth year, though we're quite not there yet. But in first year, your curriculum kind of looks at several foundation courses in architecture and design. You're introduced to hand drafting and design thinking, sustainability and ecology, and you also have some supplemental English and geography courses, I think, which give you a great foundation to your university education. And in second year, you then become much more specific in your design education, and you're introduced to studio, which is kind of the heart of your design education, if you will. It's really where you get to, explore and change, or sorry, tackle new ideas. And then that studio is then supplemented by courses like design media, which help teach you software such as 3D modeling and Rhino or SketchUp, or Adobe Creative Suite, which is where you use your graphic representation. And so those courses help complement your studio. You also get ones like site analysis and planning. And so when you do each of your semesters, you'll find that these courses kind of build off on each other, and you'll notice that there's a lot of great overlap where you can take certain ideas or learning opportunities from one course and apply them to another. And as you move through the degree, you'll notice that these continue to overlap between semesters and then between each year. And so as I enter, or almost done actually, my first semester, my third year, you're presented with quite a number of opportunities to advance your education within your degree and beyond. You can do exchange opportunities with SALA in your second semester, third year. There's a co-op program that I'm a part of that a lot of students are, which really help get you your foot in the door with your design education, and then even design build and study abroad semesters as well. And so I can give you an example. Like right now, I'm taking a studio titled Building Scale Synthesis, and so some of those courses that are going alongside that include design theory and structural systems and supports, which is actually very helpful to know when designing a building, because you're going to want to see if it can stand up, right? And how that's going to happen, because that is very important. And then I can take that knowledge as I work through the summer, if that is co-op opportunities and hopefully study abroad opportunities, COVID pending. But yeah, you really find in your education that these courses very much build on and complement one another in the curriculum. And then I'm going to hand it over to Nishi, and I think she's going to talk about her day-to-day in SALA. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm just going to share my screen. Just a second. Awesome. So about me, my name is Nishi. I'm a second year BDES student, and I'm also the VP of Marketing and Communication for DESIS. So my role as a marketing communication rep is to promote BDES events and student work. As you can see, we've had a couple of events this semester. We recently had a paint night where everyone just came in and just had, it was more of a health and wellness event. So they just came in to paint and relax and just talk. We did pumpkin carving for Halloween. We also had the networking workshop that Chris spoke about. Follow our Instagram page. It gives you an insight about the program and what student life is. We recently did a spin-off on the 73 questions with work. So you should watch that just to know what it's like to be a design student, and you also get to see a bit about our studio space. So my journey to BDES, I'm going to talk about just shifting gears a bit on why I chose BDES. One of the reasons was the program structure. Personally, I didn't know what I wanted to do after 12th grade. So knowing that this program didn't force you into one discipline, you had the option to learn about architecture, landscape architecture, and urbanism, which was really nice. It takes a holistic approach to design, and you're looking at the built environment through multiple scales, which is what I wanted to do. And the second thing was the class size. As Mari said, it's only 60 students. So there's a lot of pure learning, and you get to interact with your professors, your TAs very often. So you, it's a very interactive session. Your classes, because it's so small, you have you build a good relationship with your TAs as well as your instructors. For the creative test, so as both Mari and Chris said, the creative test is a major part of your application. It has 3 short design briefs that test your skill, aptitude, and creativity. A few recommendations or tips that I can give that can help for your creative test is, one is send your application as soon as possible. You have to send your UVC application before you get the supplementary application. So try sending that as soon as possible, just so that you could get to read the briefs earlier on, and you have enough time to work on the creative test. The second thing is read the brief carefully, try to break down the question, understand what they're asking for, do multiple iterations and experiment with different materials. Personally, I don't think my first idea is the best, so I love doing I do a lot of research, and I'm always iterating over my previous ideas. So I would say try to experiment, put yourself out there, risk, and just build on your ideas, and be honest and vulnerable. Sometimes it's really hard to put yourself out there and show who you are, but since you're not meeting the person who's looking at your application, try to put yourself in those project designs that you're working on. Show who you are. And then the last is look at the layout of your final presentation or your project that you're sending in. What I did was try to put my design process in my final layout, so you get to know more about how I began my iteration ideas, and then brought into my final thesis, and how I basically try to show my entire process in that. Now let's look at a day in the program. So I'm in my second year, and I have 1 studio class and 3 other classes that I'm taking. But majority of my time is definitely I spend a lot of time in the studio. All of us switch between online classes, studio, and the workshop. So you would see all of the BDES students in these 3 spaces mainly. Since we spend a lot of time in our studio classes, you can see our desks completely with papers and trace papers. We're literally walking around with the trace paper, and we have design iterations every minute. We're always sketching over our previous ideas, building on it. Our studio class is more of having desk crits, so we come prepared with our designs, and then we have our TAs and professors walking around, talking to us, looking at a design, and helping us build on our previous iterations. So we have a desk crit, and we go back to our desk and start drawing over it. We also did a lot of model making recently. We've been going to the workshop, building things. We were using the laser cutter and working with wood, the saw machines. So it's really interesting. Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna pass it on to Muchi, and Muchi's gonna talk a bit more about a bit more about the program.
Hi, nice to meet you all. My name is Muchi. I have a bit of a slide deck prepared. All right, so a little bit about me. I'm in my second year of BDES as well, so I see Nishi every day. So we're all kind of rotating within the same studio, same spaces, kind of coordinating along that like smaller scale of the program that both Nishi and Chris mentioned earlier, which is something that I also really liked, and that's also why I chose the BDES program. I grew up in Vancouver, and so some of the committees that I'm on in the BDES program is I am the second year representative in as part of DESIS, and also I'm part of NOMAS, which I'll get into a little bit later on, but I am the marketing director as well as the competition coordinator. So applying to the program, for me, I was actually really interested in going to architecture even in like midway through high school. I found out about SALA through a lot of the newsletters that our school had. And so I went to the open house even in like, it was, I think grade 11. So I was really young compared to a lot of the other people there, but it was still really, really eye-opening experience to kind of see just what studio life was like and kind of hear from prospective students, even though BDES didn't even exist at that time, but I still kind of went every year until finally in my grade 12 year, BDES became like a more comprehensive program and it was finally launched, super excited. And so the process for me was, of course, I did a lot of research and I'd really highly suggest that as a prospective student, you should be able to, do your own research about the program. Of course, you being here at the open house is already like step one of that research stage. So just looking more into like the requirements of the program itself. And then once you transition into the actual application stage, carefully reading that design brief. You don't be afraid to spend a really long time on this, because I know that first, once you get it, you're going to be really confused, no doubt about that. I definitely spent a lot of time just like digging into what the brief actually meant and kind of what that meant to me, how I can put myself into the creative test project. And then following that, you get into this experimentation stage where you go through a lot of iterations. This is also part of that design process that you will see when you're actually in the program as well. And so it's really important in this stage to kind of document your work every step of the way and sort of having enough of these deliverables to kind of show through your in your final layout. I think also a important part of this would be to kind of put a bit of yourself into this. And I think it's also really integral to kind of see how you can tie all your projects together, although there will be separate creative tests. You wanted to see how you can connect these together and connect these not just to each other, but also connect them to yourself and seeing if there's a way to do that. And I think that's kind of one of the really, I guess, a key aspect that you might consider, because it would really help you to understand the whole brief as a whole and also as each separate entity. So I'm going to talk about one of the recent projects we went through, and this is actually a studio project. Our studio this semester kind of focused on edge conditions, specifically on Falls Creek and how this kind of affected its effect on the area, as well as how people experience it. And so this was actually the third project of like a four project series. We started in the beginning kind of learning more about landscapes and how that relates to our understanding of it, how it's kind of connected and built on off our last year's foundational year. And so this is the third project. It's titled Plotting, and what essentially means is it's more of a time-based project. So we analyze this area over a change of time, focusing on a specific aspect. So this one I actually did this with a partner. I kind of focused more on the legacy of Expo 86 on the area. So if you don't already know this, Expo 86 happened in 1986, of course. And a lot of people might know this as where the Expo line started. And so this was kind of part of Vancouver's industrial boom, introducing a lot of new things into the area, as well as a lot of cultural aspects from all around the world. And so in this area, I focused on the Northeast Falls Creek, which was home to a lot of the entire exhibit, as some of you may already know. It stretched from the Yaletown area all the way to where Science World is right now. And we kind of looked specifically at the different infrastructural changes over the years, what kind of buildings kind of remained over the years, and which kind of new typologies were introduced. and kind of juxtaposing this against the timeline of Vancouver on the right-hand side. So on the top here, we kind of looked at what it is right now. As you can see, like some of the buildings that actually stayed included BC Place, Science World, the Yaletown Roundhouse Community Center, which a lot of people don't realize is actually really old. And there's also the Cambie Bridge, which was built specifically during the era just to kind of further connect between the north and south of Falls Creek. And so it was just really interesting to see how, although this event in time had a really big impact, not very many of its infrastructure has remained over the years. Just looking at the middle of the timeline, the Yaletown area kind of gave way to a lot of a new type of typology with the rise of residential development in the area. They kind of moved in a lot of new parks and recreation. And so that was where a new kind of typology was transformed into this area, as opposed to the Northeast Falls Creek area, which you may know it's a little bit more, a bit underdeveloped as of right now. You can see that there's just like, of course, like Science World and a couple parks scattered here and there, but there's not as much integration between the two areas. And so this is, of course, what Expo 86 has looked like before. They were just divided into areas based on the specific themes, such as the entryway to the site, which is where Science World is right now, transportation in the red here, BC, which is coincidentally where BC Place is located, and underneath the bridge is where an area of international celebration, and then transitioning that to the green and yellow, which is water transportation and culture and tradition. Yeah, and so I guess one of the key aspects that we've drawn from this project was how important preserving Expo 86 was to many people, of course, like, this is kind of why we found that on the Yaletown side, they decided to kind of make something completely new, as opposed to more of the Northeast Falls Creek, where more of the Expo 86 preservation was happening, and that's kind of led to its like underdevelopment. And so hopefully in the next couple of years, looking at this site in general, maybe we'll see some new development in this area with greater consideration of Expo 86 preservation. I did include a little photo, of course, that's just to show more of the iterative process that happens. That project, like at the very end, you always see just like a final layout, but of course it's really important, as mentioned earlier, in the creative test to show your process. And this is kind of just what our process looked like. Don't be afraid for it to get messy. There's gonna be a huge jumble of lines everywhere. And so just to preempt that, there's gonna be a lot of trace paper happening, lots of layering. And so that's gonna be just a little snapshot of what it's gonna be like in your second year.
Thanks, Michi. I think that Nishi and Ghazal are next to talk a little bit about some of the clubs. So starting with Design League.
Yeah, so I can go ahead and share my screen. So my name is Ghazal. I'm a third year BDES student, same as Chris. And I'm really excited to be talking about the UBC Design League today. And so what we are is essentially a collaboration between architecture and engineering students. We come together and we host monthly workshops. And these workshops are pretty much, they go over different architectural and engineering computer programs. So for example, Rhino, Revit, SolidWorks, stuff like that. And so these workshops are really great for students coming in from high school, just to kind of get an experience of what they will learn throughout their university degree, as well as university students. For example, Revit programs aren't really taught that much. And so learning something like that would be great to add to your resume. And then these workshops get put together and they lead to our yearly design-a-thon, which is a 2-day event in which students are given a set amount of time to complete a prompt and then present that prompt in front of a panel of judges. And so these judges include like professors, industry professionals, firm representatives. And so it's a great opportunity for students to get their names out there, as well as just to explore their creativity through these projects. And hopefully at the end of it, there could be like an internship opportunity for students by these connections. And so it's a great opportunity for both high school students and university students. And so a little bit more about that. We're hosting the first Designathon on the 19th and 20th of February in the upcoming year. And so registration will be open for that very soon. So if you're interested, feel free to follow us on our socials to find out when that's going to be open. And again, we host workshops every month. So as far as our team, we're quite small. We just developed this year. And so obviously we have like a president, architectural VP, but there's like a whole series of roles that are still open and open for applications. And so like anything like technical, architectural, executive, marketing, even if you're not in architecture or engineering and you want to do something to do with like sponsorship or finance, or if you're into filming and you want to be our videographer, all of those roles are open. And so once again, you can follow us and contact us through our Instagram, which is UBC Design League, or email us at ubcdesignleague@gmail.com. Yeah.
That's fantastic, Gazelle. Thank you so much. So excited about Design League. And finally, Michi, will you present the club?
Yeah, for sure. Right, so as mentioned earlier, I'm actually a part of UBC NOMAS as the marketing director. Unfortunately, President couldn't make it today, so I'll be presenting. So NOMAS is the National Organization of Minority Architecture Students. It's part of a greater organization called NOMA, which is the National Organization of Minority Architects. So a bit about us, we are the first Canadian and international student chapter outside of the US. And one of our main focuses was to build fellowship and community among minority students and designers to help them share their stories and skills. And so what we do kind of focuses on promoting conversations surrounding equity and quality within architecture. And one of our initiatives to do that is also through Project Pipeline to help minority designers access this sort of certification. And one of our missions is to serve as a student collective to advocate for diversity in design education and to create discussions in regards to equity and equality within the educational and professional architecture field. So some of the recurring events we have throughout the year, we recently completed our design competition and got honorable mention as well as placed in the top 6. And so one of this was we were tasked to create a community that was in Detroit, and this which served as the headquarters for the NOMA organization, creating a holistic community view that considers the previous marginalized community that's living there and how that kind of shapes community development in the future. So our project was called D-Town. We kind of focused on creating a new platform to put shortly to kind of elevate the perspective of people in the area, wrapping that around the middle community center that connects everyone back to the middle core. There's a couple more of our boards. We have some renderings showing more of what that looks like. And as well, we do have some recurring events throughout the year. For example, our summer tutorials that some of you might seen on our Instagram. We have this available for all students, whether that be current students or incoming students. That's going to be available, especially going into September. There were past events. These were from last year. And of course, during COVID, we weren't able to host very many in person. So we focused a lot on the lunchtime lecture series, which included this lecture on VR and AR in architecture, as well as another one with Miriam Kamara. Also before COVID, this wasn't when I was part of the club, but I know a lot of people were talking about how they did a lot of firm tours and firm calls, and this could be in Vancouver as well as outside of Vancouver, especially in Seattle. We have a connection with some of the firms there. And so it was really fun for the students to kind of organize a weekend to kind of head out, head to Seattle together, stay for a couple nights, and just kind of explore the spaces there, especially at the firms that we have connections with. One of our newer initiatives that we've been trying to start up is Project Pipeline, which aims to empower young people, kind of transitioning that from high school to like college and then into their professional careers. Of course, this is in the works, but this is definitely something that we're looking into and something that's a really big part of the normal organization. And so, yeah, this is like just a brief kind of timeline of one of our initiatives. And our current stage, we're focusing on high school and elementary school outreach. And over the break, you can kind of look forward to some online workshops from us, focusing on maybe helping you with your creative tests. So please stay tuned on our Instagram, located there, for any updates. Thanks for listening.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Michi. Thank you, Gazelle. Thank you, Nishi. Thank you, Chris, for your presentations and for being here. It looks like I'm looking at the Q&A, and it looks like we've actually answered all the questions that have come in. So I'm wondering if anybody wants to ask a question, maybe more directly to the students here, that could just speak more to their experience, although they've done a really great job. I really thank you all for sharing your experiences. I really love hearing about it too, and also sharing some of the information about the clubs and activities you're involved in. Okay, well, is there a mascot or school spirit is the question. That would be Odessa's question. Not that I'm aware of. The students have a competition every year where they design a new like logo or word mark for the program. So which is incredible. And then there's a they make t-shirts and sweatshirts and tote bags for that year. And so it's almost like a kind of anti-mascot idea, because it's every year this kind of question of who is BDES and what do we look like gets renewed, and the students get to put their like input on that. So it's kind of a way to answer that question. Daniel wants to know, what grades did you get in high school to get into this program? Yuchi, do you want to answer that maybe?
Yeah, and so I grew up in the BC high school system. And so I think, I don't know how UBC specifically calculated my grade. I think it was based on the top 5 courses. And so my average looked around like a 92 to be specific, but I think it definitely varies across the board and across a lot of the applicants who apply. I know Tara mentioned earlier in the chat that you should be looking to get around like an 80 and above to be considered and being a part of that competitive stream. And so I think that should be something you're looking at, but also of course, not to stray away from the creative test. Of course, you should also be fairly focused on that, especially on finishing that earlier. So that I really suggest that you work on it throughout the winter break. Think of it as a really fun like side activity, side hobby that you're doing, but please don't leave it until the months before. That it's the worst thing that you can do, especially if you have like exams going on in school. It's definitely not something that you want to take on alongside that. And so I think kind of optimizing that for that winter break workflow would be ideal.
Great advice, Michi. Okay, does anybody else want to answer that question? What grades you got in high school? Let's just, I think Michi's response is really good. Daniel wants to know, is the stereotype about ARC students pulling all-nighters a lot accurate, or is the work manageable as long as you're smart with your time? maybe Ghazal or Chris as a third year is learning to be smarter with the time can answer that question.
I think there definitely are some all-nighters, even if you're really good at managing your time. I think it's inevitable. However, there are a lot of things that you could do, like scheduling and just like if you're in a group talking with your partners and stuff to manage that time. So it doesn't necessarily, like, you're not always not sleeping. But yeah, there are ways to manage it for sure. Yeah.
Thanks, Ghazal. Chris, as an undergraduate student, do you feel, I'm just gonna direct these to you. Do you feel as though SALA is a tight-knit and close community?
Yeah, absolutely. As a third year, me and Ghazal, there's only about 27 of us in our studio, and so we're constantly seeing each other every day. And I promise it hasn't gotten tiring yet. Maybe it will later, but no, what's great about studio is you really get to kind of work with the people that you see every day and, you know, bounce ideas off each other. You'll find, like, even in times with intense workloads, you have other people that are kind of going through the same thing, and then you can really bond over that. Even when I'm noticing in second years, their studios, like they also have a very close-knit community, and that's something that is indicative when you have like a 60-person class size, and that's a real benefit of SALA, I think.
That's great, Chris. Thank you. Okay, just a time check. We're past noon, so just looking at the 3 unanswered questions, I think Tara is answering one of them. That's kind of easy to answer, you know, with text. Maybe Sophie's question could be something that you guys would be most qualified to answer. How do second year transfer students get integrated into the program socially and academically? Maybe Nishi, since you haven't answered one of these, and as a second year, maybe you can speak to that.
I think most of the second year transfer students end up taking a few desk courses in their first year. So they do know what it's like, and they do have interaction with us way before coming to the program. And again, as I said, we're just 60 students, so it's a really small community. So even with the transfer students coming in, like, they would just blend in immediately because we're always working together and always constantly talking to each other. We're looking at each other's work, so it just happens naturally.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. I think that the last question we can answer by typing it, if that's okay. So I'm going to end the session. We said it would be till noon. I want to wholeheartedly once again thank Nishi, Chris, Miuchi, and Ghazal for coming and being with us this morning, presenting your perspectives and your experiences thus far. And then thank you so much to everyone that came to our session. I hope it was helpful for you. We do have an email address, des@sala.ubc.ca, which is on our website. So if you have general questions about our program or about applying specifically, feel free to send them to that email address. That's the best one to field questions from you all. And I look forward to seeing your applications that'll be coming in now or next month and in January. And good luck to everyone with their creative tests and video interviews and aspects of supplemental. And beyond that, thanks again and have a good rest of your Saturday.